So hey guys, how's it going on? Welcome back to a brand new episode on the channel, and today in this one we are going to cover CSS in one shot. So in this video we will be covering all the basics about CSS and how to actually use it along with HTML, and we will cover different aspects of how we can use CSS in our websites and stuff like that. So let's get started without any further ado. So first of all, what is CSS? So CSS simply stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Now this is the full form of CSS, but why is CSS actually used for? So if we see any website, we see multiple designs, we can style the websites as we want, right? So CSS is actually used to style websites the way we want. We can style HTML elements, components, and everything using CSS. Let me show you an example. So if we see an Amazon, so this is Amazon.in. This is a site with like HTML and CSS. That's why this is looking like this. All right, let me show you an example of a site which I developed so that I can give you a more deeper understanding of what CSS can do to a website. So right now I have opened up this website. Now this is a website which I made in the beginning days of my web development journey. And yeah, this is an Instagram web versions clone. So this website currently uses HTML and CSS to show some basic data, right? These are some basic hard-coded data it shows, and we have some basic hover effects and all. Now this is a website currently using HTML and CSS and JavaScript as well. So if I go to this, like here's the code base of it. This is the entire index.html, and right now it is using style.css. All the styling is mentioned here, right? So now if I remove this file, let's just simply say let's comment it, and if I hit save, now just if I come to back to this and refresh, see, this is how this HTML looks without any CSS. But as soon as I add CSS to it, this is what happens to it. Now see what's the difference. Now this is what CSS can actually do to your website. You can like add styling, you can add animations, you can do a lot more to it. So let's just close this and let's get started with CSS right away. So CSS, as I said, it is used to style and lay out web pages. You can change colors, you can add different kinds of margins, you can create different types of layouts and all. Now, how does CSS works in the first place? How does CSS works with HTML? So HTML provides the structure to the website, whereas CSS simply beautifies it. Now let's go to VS Code and start making our code. So this was the previous code. Now let's create a new index.html file so that I can show you how it's done. So as I said, and as I tell in all the videos, code alongside me, that is very important. All right. So now this is a basic doc type. We have some headings, we have a body, and now what we are going to do is let's create an h1 tag. And in this h1 tag, let's type in hello and quickly open this in our web browser. So this is what we have right now. Now what we will do is let's start it with live server so that we don't need not refresh it again and again. And here we have it. So this is it. Now, how do we apply CSS to our HTML files? Now, actually, there are three different ways. I'll apply for now. Let me show you an example of inline styling. Now, inline styling means writing CSS code along with HTML itself. All right, how it is done? So I'll use some keyword called as style. Within this I will just simply mention the style. So for now, let's change the color of the text. I will change its color to, let's say, green, and if I hit save, you will see it is now green. Let me zoom it in a bit. So now you can see it is hello in green color. If I change it to, let's say, red, then it will simply become red. If I change it to, let's say, blue and hit save, you will see it is blue. So now this is called inline styling, writing CSS right away in the HTML element itself. Now let me talk about internal CSS. Now you don't want to do inline styling a lot because it will make your code look clumsy. So you generally do it sometimes when you feel like if I create an external file or something for it, that will be a headache for you. So that's when you use inline CSS. Now I am going to tell you about internal CSS. Now internal CSS is done in between the head tag. So here you use the style tag. Now within the style tag you write all your CSS. So this is an H1. So we are going to select this H1 using H1. Now, don't worry, I will talk about all this selections and everything later on in this video. But for now, just see how we are adding CSS. I'm just telling you about that right now. So in H1, this is H1. Let's just again say the color to be, let's say, yellow this time. And if I hit save, you will see it's yellow now, right? Let's make it gray. And if I hit save, you will see it's gray now. So that is how this is, you can call it as internal CSS. This is internal CSS. And the one which we previously did, something like this, style using the style keyword. And let's make it color red here. And this is called as inline CSS. Now there is a third type, which is what we generally use, or you can call it as external CSS, which simply means creating another CSS file and linking it with our HTML. How do we do that? So let's create a new file here. Let's call it styles.css. Now within this is our CSS code. Now let's first of all link it. So to link a CSS file, what you do is you use a link element which HTML provides us. So type in link. Now this is the link tag. Now in this link tag, what you do is you provide a relevance, like you can say it's relative to a style sheet. So we are creating a style sheet. So I'll say something like this, style sheet. And after this, we'll provide an href, which will have the location of the style sheet. So I am going to say dot slash, which will go into the current directory, and then I will select styles.css. Now if I hit save, you will see it is like properly styled. Now what I am going to do is now what I'm going to do is define an h1 here. Let's say h1, let's say hello world, and in this I will save it. In the CSS file, I'm going to select this h1 and again give it some color. Let's give it aqua this time. Hit save, and now you will see it's in aqua color. If I change this to, let's say, green again, and if I hit save, you will see it is green. So this is the third way of adding CSS to your HTML files, which is the external CSS. All right. So this is external CSS. Now the next thing, what is the next thing? Now we have covered different ways of including CSS along with your HTML, right? Coming to the next topic, let's talk about CSS syntax and CSS selectors. So this basic CSS syntax is very simple. This is the selector and this is where you write the CSS properties. Now this is a CSS property and this is its value. It is that simple. Now this h1 here is called a selector. Now let's talk about different types of selectors. So I will just remove all these comments so that the code looks a little cleaner. So I removed everything. Currently we just have an h1. So now how does this CSS know that we have to select this particular h1 only? It doesn't know. So if I add another h1, let's say hello 2, and it's currently colored green. So if I hit save and show you the website, you will see it's hello world. Both of them are in green color. So currently CSS doesn't know which h1 it has to style. If I create some h2, you will see, let's say hello 3. If I hit save, you will see this is in black. Now CSS is only styling h1, right? So this is called as element selector. All the elements, all the h1 elements will be applied with this styling. That is what it means. If I say here, let's select h2 now, h2, and then let's give it a color of, let's say, red. If I hit save, now you see these both of these are in green, this is in red. So that is how this works, right? Now this is called as element selector. You can do the same thing for any input element as well. You can do the same thing for any paragraph element. Let's create a paragraph. All right. So after this, let's create a paragraph in which we add some fake text. If I hit save, you can see that fake text. Now this is in black color, right? If I save this file, okay. Now you can see this is black and this is in red color. So this is how you can select all the elements in HTML using CSS. Now this is called as element selector. Now let's talk about another type of selector, which is known as class selector. So right now, okay, let me talk about class selector first. So let us go to Amazon.in. Right. Now if you see these three cards, this is card 1, card 2, card 3. all of them has similar kind of styling. You can see all of these have similar kind of stylings. Now these are not a single element, right? There are multiple elements, and we all of them are inside a container or something. Imagine it like that. All right. If you want to imagine more clearly, what I can do is, this is a container within which we have multiple cards, right? Now these are three different cards. Now I want all these three to have a similar kind of styling. How do we do that? So again, come to a document. Now this is H1, this is H2. All right. What I want to do is, let's create a class now. So I'm going to assign this H2 a class. Let's say my class is the name of the class, and I'm going to copy this thing and provide the same class to the paragraph element as well. Now in style sheet, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to select this class. Now how do we select a class? We'll say dot and then class name. So the class name was my class. Now we have selected this class. Now this is called as class selector. Now within this, if I say color is Alice blue, and if I hit save, you will see it is that color. Now this color isn't that good. So what we are going to do is, let's make it blue right now. If I hit save, you'll see both of them are having the same style. If I say something like text decoration underline and hit save, you'll see both of them are having the same styling, right? So this is how class selector works. It applies the same kind of styling to all the elements which have that class to themselves, right? Now let's talk about another thing. Now, what about, like, I want to have a single element with a specific styling. I don't want that same styling to be applied to anyone else. So what we can do is, instead of a class, give an ID. And let's say this as my ID. Now if I hit save, now this is the class. This styling is same here, but this is removed now. So how do we select an ID? So we are going to say hashtag and then name of the ID. So my ID, I have selected my ID right now. So what we are going to do is, let's give it a color of, let's say, brown. And if I hit save, you'll see this is in brown color now. So this is how ID works. Now hashtag or ID selector is used to select unique elements, like you want this particular styling only to itself, right? To nothing else. Now let's talk about group selectors. Let's remove this ID thing for now, ID and classes as well. Let's remove this. Now suppose I want to select multiple elements and provide them with the same styling. One method is, I can provide them all with a class name. Another shortcut is simply like, let's remove them. Suppose I want to select all the H1s in the site, in the website or in the HTML, and I also want to select the P tags. I don't want to select H2. I only want to select these two. All right. We put in a H1 and then we say comma and then P. And in here, what we do is, let's simply give them a color of, let's give them yellow. And if I hit save, you will see H1s and the paragraph tags have become yellow now. If we make it, let's say, green, you will see H1s and paragraph tags has become green. So that is how group selector works. Now this is called as group selector. And previously we have talked about the ID selector, the class selector, and the element selector as well. Now let's talk about some basic properties and their values in CSS. All right. So first of all, let's talk about text styling. So this is a p tag. We currently have this p tag. So let's try some properties over that. So the first thing is color, which we already talked about. Let's assign it to red, and you see p is in red color. So this is color, which gives the font color to our tag. And then comes font size. Now by default, font size has large, larger, medium, small. We can do all these. If I say smaller, you will see font size is small. If we make it large, you will see it's large. We can make something like XX large, and if you hit save, you'll see it's very big. Or else you can do something like 100 pixels. You can give your custom size. I made it 100 pixels. And then you can even make it something like 80 pixels. And if I hit save, you'll see now it's 80 pixel size. So you can also do this. And then we can talk about, for now, let's make it smaller. And then we can also talk about something like as text align. Now text align have, you can align it to the center, you can align it to the left, right, and something like that. And these are the major things. So if we say text align center, by default it is text aligned to the left. As you can see, the paragraph is starting from the left, right? If we make it to the center, see what happens. It is aligned to the center. If we make it right, it will work the same, but in the opposite direction. It is like opposite to the default value, which is left, right? It will start from left. So this is how text align property works. Now let's talk about some background stuff, like how to set background colors and all. So this is a p tag. Now let's keep only one h1. Now what I will do is, let's select this h1. Now in this h1, first of all, let's give it a background color. So to set background color, you can type in background color and give it some color as we did like in this property. So let's give it a aqua, which is slightly light blue. So now you can see we have that aqua background here, right? This is how you give a background color. You can use multiple colors. Now I'm going to tell you something unique about colors. Like how do we pick colors? There are different types of, there are different ways in which you can mention colors in here, all right? So the first way is to directly mention its name. It's a basic color. You can type in red, yellow, green, aqua, brown, something like that. But there are other ways as well. Like we have RGB values as well. So RGB contains values of red, green, blue. So if I make it 0 and then 0 and then 0, it represents black. And if I make it 255, 255 and 255, it will give you white. So that is how it works. You can use VS Code's color picker to adjust these like this, and you can select any color right away if you want to pick it yourself. So this is one way. And then we have RGBA values. Now A means you will add another parameter here. It is called as opacity. So if I say 0.3, this is 30% opacity. If I hit save, you will see it's slightly white now. If I make it something like 1, which is the maximum opacity, it will be in its normal color. And the next way is a hex code. Let me give you, let's say color picker, and this is a basic color picker Google provides us with. So let us select some color, some blue shade. So I'm going to select this, right? Now here you can see hex code. Now this is the hex code. If I copy this code and come here, replace this RGBA value with it, and if I hit save, now you can see that color has been applied as the background color. Now these are multiple ways of adding colors to your CSS code. Now this is background color. Let's comment this. Now let's talk about the next thing. Now to comment in CSS, you use slash star and star slash. But if you want a shortcut of in VS Code how to comment any line, just go to that line and press Control slash. It will comment the entire line. All right. So now what we will do is we'll give it a background image. Now how to give a background image to any element? Let's say background, and then I'm going to select background image. Now in this background image, we use a function called as URL, to which we pass in the URL of the image. You can use something from the assets as well, or you can pick in any image from any online image as well. So let's go to pexels.com again, and in here I'm going to search for a lion, and what we will do is, let's pick in this image. Let's copy the image address, and then let's come here in the URL, paste this URL and hit save. Now you will see that line image is here, but as the image size is big and h1 is just a single line, the image is not properly aligned. So what you can do is give it a height. Let's give a height to this h1. I'll say height, and let's make it 500 pixels. Now you will see it is taking 500 pixels of height. If I take it 100%, it's like exactly 500 pixels, and it has a background image of this line. Now we can use some background properties. If we say background position, you can have different positions. You can have a center, you can have a left, so that the image aligns exactly at the center. Now what you see in the images, there is some inefficiencies, or you can say when this image is ending here, it is restarting here. So what you can do is you can say background repeat and set it to no repeat. This way it will not repeat itself and it's just this much. Now what you can do to make sure that this image covers the entire element, what we can do is we can call something like background position, not position. You say background size and set it to cover. Now cover means it will take in the entire element. But if you say contain, it will adjust the image exactly to its size. So cover and contain, you got these two properties, and that is how it works. Now if it's save, you'll see everything is covered. So this is how you set background image. All right. Now let's talk about something called as box model. Let me explain to you what box model is. So let us say we have this is our entire website, all right. This is our entire window. Okay. Now in this we have some certain element. Let us say we have an H1. This is the entire place and H1 is taking inside our browser window, all right. So now what we say is in box model we have three kinds of properties. We have a border, we have padding, and we have margin. Now what is a border? Now suppose here this H1 has some text. Let's say hello world. This is some text, all right. So now this borderline, HTML doesn't give any line by default, right? It doesn't give any borders by default. So you can set these borders to some width you want. So let's do that right away. I'm going to remove all this, and then here I'm going to put in an H1. It's only, if you see our document right now, it's only hello world, a blank hello world, right? So let's select the H1 and let's give it a border. Border of, first of all, mention the width. Let's say 2 pixels, and then the type. I want a solid. You can say solid. You can say dashed. You can say dashed or solid. So I'm going to go with solid, and then you mention the color. So I'm going to say black. Now if I hit enter and save this, you'll see we got a border, right? If I increase this 2 pixels to, let's say, 5 pixels, you will see the border has thickened. So that is what is a border. Now let's talk about padding. All right. So if this is the text in within this, right? So what we do is this text has some width from the left side, from here, has some gap from the top side and from the bottom as well, and some from the right as well. Now this gap within the border is called as padding. Now if I show you what padding actually is, we have 4 different directions of padding. So we can do padding left, we can do padding right, we can do padding top, we can do padding bottom. Let's give a padding right first. Let's make it, let's say, 50 pixels. If I hit save, all right, I forgot to add a P here. If I hit save, you will see, okay, my bad. Okay, padding right comes from this side, so we currently can't see it. Let's make it left. Now you can see we got some gap from here, right? If I do this, do a similar thing for padding top as well and add a 50 pixels, you will see we got some gap from the top as well. Instead of this, if we do only padding and add 50 pixels here, what will happen is it will give us 50 pixels padding from all the directions. So this is how it works. All right. And this is what is padding. It is actually the gap between the borders and the inside content of the element. And the next thing is margin. Now what is a margin? Now coming to margin, it is the space between the border and the parent component. So what is the parent component here? If we see our HTML, it is the body tag. And what is the body in a document? This entire white thing. This is the body, right? So what we do, assume this is the entire white thing. This is the margin right now. This is the margin we have. So this is the margin in four directions. From the parent element, the gap between the parent element and the borders of the element is called as a margin. So you can say something. If we come here, this is the H1, right? Let's give this a margin. Let's say margin left. Now to give a margin left of, let's say, 100 pixels, now you will see the border will slide to somewhat right, right? You can give it a margin right of, let's say, 200 pixels, and you will see it is now to the right from 200 pixels. This is what is margin. You can do the same from top and bottom as well. Now we have covered box model. What next? So now we have to talk about something called as flexbox. Now, why do we use flexbox in the first place? Now, it is a property which we use to set the layout of a website. So come back to the example of Amazon.in. So here we have multiple cards. So we want to align them in a structure. Let's say four in the first row and next four in the next row. That is how we want to align it. Or depending on the display size, I want to align it, right? Something like that I want to do. So let us take an example. So this is a body, or you can say a window. We have multiple cards in here. All right. Suppose what I want to do is I want to place multiple cards. But once a card is like crossing this size, like it's not coming in the frame, what I want to do is I want to take this card and put it in here. When I scroll, I could see that card. That is what I want to make sure, right? For these kind of instances, we can use Flexbox. Or let's say you want to add a scroller here so that I can scroll to see the next cards. That is also in these kinds of instances, you use Flexbox. Now, how to use Flexbox? So for that, let's create a card first. Before we create a card, I want to teach you about a new element called as div. Now, div is called a dividend, or you can call it something like a divisor, which you can use to create separate container. Like you can use it as a separate containers. There is no specific use of the div tag. All right. So within this, I want to say I want to give it let's say a class name, or of I will say card, and then what I will do is I'll give an h1. Let's say title, and then let's give it a brief description. So I'll add a p, and this is a brief description. That is what we have said. And if we just create multiple cards here, so we have created five different cards. And now if we go here, you can see we got some five different cards. Let's remove this h1 styling now. And this looks something like this right now. So now what we are going to do is keep all these cards inside another div. I'm going to create a new div and paste all these inside this. And let's give this one a class name of, let's say, container, CONT, which is a short form of container, right? Let's first of all style a card. So I'm going to select the card with dot card, and this is how it looks currently. So let's give it a, let's say, background color of, let's give it aqua. Let's give it a aqua background color. So you can see now we have background color. Let's give it a padding of, let's say, 10 pixels. If we hit save, we have a padding of 10 pixels. Then give a margin as well of 10 pixels. Now we got margin as well. Now I want something like a slightly curved borders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some property called as border radius. So this is border radius is used to give curvings, or you can provide curvings to the vertices. I am going to give something like 10 pixels. So you can see we got slight curvings here. Now what I want to do is, this is how these currently look. I haven't defined any width or anything to these cards, right? Even though they have taken complete width. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the container. So if I select container with .cont, and first of all, I'm going to set its display to flex. Now guys, the default display value is block. So we are So here we are setting it to flex. Now after this, what you do is, now if I hit save, you will see these are aligned horizontally, right? And if I do something like, let's say, justify content to the center, you will see these are to the center of the entire container. Now if I give it a background color to show you how much space it is taking, let's make it black. You can see it is taking the entire width of the screen, and in its center we are having these cards. Now what if I have few more cards? Let's say something like this. Now I have multiple cards. Right now it is taking all the cards because it is constantly contra, or you can say reducing the width of this each card because it is not fixed. What if I have card of a fixed width? Let's give it a width of, let's say, 400 pixels. I do something like this. If I hit save, right? Okay, I have given a fixed width of them, and let's remove this thing. Now you can see I'm giving them a minimum width of 400 pixels, which means that the minimum of minimum width it will have is 400 pixels. It can't have width less than 400 pixels. That is what min width specifies. And you can see the first one is taking only three of the cards are visible in the screen. Rest of them are to the side, right? But I don't want it like this. I want them below. So what we can do is we can set the flex wrap property to wrap. So now you can see these are aligned. Whichever the cards are to the right side of the screen, they will come down. So this is how it works. Now, instead of this, now as you can see, if I remove this wrap and remove this as well, we have them in horizontal or in row direction, right? What if I want them in column wise direction? So I'm going to say something called as flex direction and set it to column. That is, it is as simple as that. Now it is in column direction. All the other properties are same, they will work the same way, just in a column wise direction. So this is flexbox. Now flexbox is generally used for creating layouts and stuff like that. All right. So now let's talk about something called as media queries. Now why are media queries used? Let us see. Now Amazon, this is Amazon.in a computer screen. What if I want to open it in a mobile screen? How will it look? So I'll tell you a few shortcuts. One is if you're using a desktop or press F12 on your keyboard. If you're using a laptop, use function plus F12. This will open this console. And what you have to do is click on this laptop and mobile icon. If you click on this, you can select different devices here. Let's select iPhone 12 Pro. This is how this website is currently looking on a mobile device. If I refresh it, you will see this is how Amazon.in looks on a mobile device. Okay. Now, this is a different design, right? This is not same as this. It is not same as this. Like items are aligned in a different order. The search bar is small. This has gone upwards. A slightly different design, right? Which is suitable for mobiles. Now, this is called as responsive design. If I do something like this, as I adjust this, the elements adjust themselves. Now, this is called a responsive design, which styles the website as per the width of the device or the size of the device. Now, how to do these things? How to actually create responsive designs? So, this is the place where media queries come into picture. So, let's do the same thing again. Let's make them to the start so that each card starts from the starts and give them a minimum width of 400 pixels. So this is how they look. And let's do flex wrap so that it looks nice. So now if you see, if I open up a mobile view, because a mobile has generally width less than 400 pixels, here you can see because I have given this 400, here you can see for iPhone 12 Pro, the width is 390 pixels, but I have given it a width of 400 pixels to each of my card, right? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use something called as a media query. How to use it? We'll say media, and after this, within the brackets, we'll give it a something like a max width, and here I will say 500 pixels. Okay, this means that whenever the screen is 500 pixels width, apply the following styles. That is what I mean. So here we can say dot card, we can select it again, and this time we can put in minimum width of, let's say, 300 pixels. If I hit save, now you can see it is aligned properly. Okay. If we remove this, now on here top right side, you can see the width of the website as I scroll this thing. Now, as soon as I take it under 500 pixels, you will see its width reduce each card. Now, this is how media queries work. Similarly, you can adjust all other stylings as well. If we change the background color to, let's say, dark blue, somewhat dark blue. So as soon as I take it, you can see the color is also changed. So this is how this actually works. Now let's talk about CSS positioning. So let us say we create a div with class name dot navbar. So this is the shortcut. You type in dot and then the class name. It will create a div with that class name. All right. Now inside this div, I have a h1. Let's say this is my navbar, and if I hit save, you will see we have that in my document, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to style it. Let's say dot navbar, and in this, let's give it a color. Let's give it a color of aqua. And if I hit save, I mean not color, background color. So now we can see this is what we have. Let us change its position. Okay, before we change its position, what I want you to show is let's create another h1 and let's say this is normal h1. All right. Now you can see we see this. But as soon as I change the position of this navbar to absolute, you will see that the h1 which we previously had has gone below this. What is actually happening here? If you see Amazon.in, we have this navbar, right? When I scroll it down, the navbar is still fixed there. It is not going anywhere, right? Similarly, in this place, this navbar is staying on top of everything. You can consider it like it is floating on over some water and everything is else is submerged at the lower bottom of the sea or something like that. All right. Now this is absolute positioning. If we call about something like fixed, fixed positioning, right now it is same. If I just remove this fixed positioning, you will see this is what we initially had. But if I change it to fixed, it is like on top of anything. Now, the difference between absolute and fixed positioning is that in absolute positioning, it is positioned relative to the nearest positioned ancestor. What it means is it is positioned based on the parent element. Whatever the parent element is, it is positioned based on that. Like if you have a single section, when I scroll to a next section, the absolute property will be scrolled up as well. That absolute element will be scrolled up as well. But in fixed, the component or you can say the element stays in place even when we scroll. Now the example of fixed is this navbar itself. Even if I scroll to a different section or anything, this navbar is still here, right? But in absolute, if I scroll through this section, this will also go. Let me show you a certain something. So this is position fixed right now, and this is how our document looks, right? So what we are going to do is I want to make from left, keep it at a 10 pixels, and from bottom keep it on a 5 pixels. Now you will see that this dot navbar will go to the bottom right of the screen. Okay, from left, no, I want to make it right. So now you will see this is on the bottom right. From right it is or at a distance of 10 pixels, from bottom it is at a distance of 5 pixels. Now this is the way you can align this fixed components or fixed elements. Okay, if I change it to something called as relative. Now what does relative does? Relative aligns it, positions it relative to its initial position. Now it is from its initial position, it is taking it to the right by 10 pixels and from the bottom by 5 pixels. So slightly above and slightly to the left. That is what is happening. And the another property is static, which is the default positioning. Static is the default positioning of our elements. So if it is static, the right and bottom properties doesn't work. So this is called CSS positioning. Now let's talk about animations. All right. So let us consider this H1 itself, this navbar itself, and let's try to animate that navbar. All right. We have this background color. This is how the navbar looks now. Let's give it a width of, let's say, 300 pixels. This is the navbar right now. So what we are going to do is, I want to create an animation which will make this navbar move ahead and backwards. It will go like front and back, something like that. So what I'm going to do is, let's create an animation. To create an animation, you use the keyframes keyword, and after that you give the animation name. So let's give something like move. Now, in here, you define its positioning. So what I want to do is, I'll say initially, I want to give it a from. Initially, what I want it to do is transform and then translate. Now this transform gives the positioning of transforming it. The translate is like translate it in X in Y. If you only say translate, you can translate it in X and Y. Let us say 10 pixels in X and 5 pixels in Y. That is how it works. But what I want to do is, I want to only translate in X direction, that is horizontally. So what I'm going to do, initially it is going to be translate X at 0. But finally, what I want to do is transform, translate X to, let's say, 100 pixels. And that is it. We have now defined our animation called move. Now to apply this animation to this navbar, what we will do is type in animation, and in here we'll give first of all animation name, move, and then 2 seconds, and the number of times the animation runs. So move 2 seconds infinite. Now if you see, this is what is happening. Now infinitely this animation will take on place. From that positioning, go to 100 pixels to the right. This is what the animation is doing. So I want to do it like go to the front, then come to the start, then again go to the front. Smoothly the entire animation. So for that, what I can do is, I'll make this 0%. I'll make this 50%. And what I will do at 100% is come back to the initial place. So I'll say this again. Now if I hit save, you will see it will go ahead, then come back, then go ahead, then come back. All this is happening under 2 seconds. Now there are multiple animation properties as well. You can do like animation, and you can say we have timing function, which is like if you want a certain part of it to be fast, then slow, then fast, then slow, something like that, you can use cubic bezier and apply something like this. If I hit save, you will see the speed of this is changing. The speed of the animation is changing, right? For that, you use something like this. And then we have something like animation duration, which is 2 seconds. You can set it, change it by this property as well. Then animation delay, by how much time you want to delay it initially. And then iteration count is infinite, or you want it 10 times, something like that. Animation direction, the play state, whether you want to pause it, play it, something like that. There are multiple animation properties. You can just scroll through them. But this is how you create animation, basic animation. All right. And we have covered almost everything in CSS, but don't just think that you got CSS completely. No, CSS is like a big ocean. There are a lot more things in CSS which you need to cover, which you will know by making projects and stuff like that. It's not like you can cover CSS in a day or two. If even I can say that I don't know CSS completely, but it's a very huge topic. It takes lots of years to complete it, and it's never like you will learn complete CSS. There's no one in this world who will remember all the properties, all the values, and something like that, right? So that is how it works. You just constantly need to learn, you just constantly need to build projects and stuff like that. So that's it for this session, guys. I'll meet you again in the next session where we will be covering JavaScript in one shot. So If you have any kinds of doubts, let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next session. Until then, bye bye.